The FDA just banned the sale of Juul e-cigarettes in the U.S. They're citing a lack of data and evidence to assess their potential health risks. Under the order, Juul must stop distributing or selling their products immediately, and products on store shelves must be removed and taken off the market. The FDA's move is being considered an opening gun for a crackdown on the entire vaping industry.
Juul was almost single-handedly responsible for creating an epidemic among our nation's youth. Between 2017 and 2019, the number of adolescents who smoked e-cigarettes more than doubled. It was largely responsible because of Juul.
We're joined now by a health expert, Dr. Payal Kholi. I feel like we've been talking about vaping and e-cigarettes for so many years. Why do you think kids just latched on to this and became the phenomenon that it is?
You know, vaping is really tobacco 2.0, and the companies actually targeted the marketing towards that generation. In fact, they've looked at the flavors that were chosen, and they're particularly chosen to actually target our youth. So why people start is because they're targeted marketing, peer pressure. So if your friends are doing it, you might feel compelled to do it. And we're seeing the highest rise in middle and high school kids. That's when we're really susceptible to that peer pressure. But once they start, once you take a puff of that cigarette, it triggers the endorphins in your brain that actually cause dopamine release. That's your feel happy chemical. So you get a mini high. So you want to do more and more of it. And then if you stop doing it, you actually get withdrawal symptoms. So you get cravings, you get withdrawal symptoms, and you get a high, and you need more and more to get that same level of high. So highly addictive product, and that's how addiction happens.
Can you walk us back and just explain for people what exactly Juul is, why it's bad? And I remember the early days when the company would talk about marketing. Yes, there was this problem with children, but so many people thought this was a good way to get off of cigarettes.
Yes, in fact, that is why it really came about, because it was supposed to be targeted, supposed to do good, to take adults off of the traditional nicotine cigarettes, put them on a lower dose of nicotine as a way to sort of help them wean, and we saw that that was actually quite effective. But Juul, which is an electronic cigarette, looks like a fancy little USB drive, fits in the palm of your hand. One cartridge of Juul is equivalent of an entire pack of cigarettes, or 200 cigarette puffs. So kids don't even realize that they're consuming that kind of nicotine when they're using this product.
An adult might be trying to taper down with the nicotine they're using, whereas a child is just getting the nicotine.
Getting addicted to that nicotine, so actually having the opposite effect. So the fact that kids make up a disproportionate number of people who use, Juul, which makes up half the market share, that's the reason the FDA has really started saying, hey, let's stop, let's put a pause on this product and see what it's doing to our youth.
Yeah, and I'm curious why now, because we have been talking about it for so long. It's like the FDA is finally stepping in and making a change. Why pull it off the shelves and why do it right now?
I think because of that rise in numbers we just heard about. In the last couple of years, from 2019 to 2020, we saw really a very big increase in the number of kids using. Now, part of that was the pandemic as well, because of increased access. Kids were at home more. But I think this is the FDA sending a really strong message saying, stop. If you're going to target our kids, you better make sure that the product you're putting out there is not going to cause permanent damage, because we're talking about brain development. We're talking about effects on fertility. We're talking about seizures and arrhythmias. We're talking about a whole host of problems, including the way that our genes are expressed, which is called genotoxicity, that happens from nicotine.
What are some resources out there we know Colorado's had a problem with this too. I don't have the data on the top of my head here, but I remember there have been studies done about the problem in Colorado-specific kids, and then trying to get kids to quit this. What's out there for kids to get off of this stuff?
That is the good news there. We have so many resources to get our kids and our adults who are trying to quit any kind of tobacco product, off of it. So the Colorado Quit Line is a really great resource, and it's free. You can call them and they'll actually set up a little individualized plan for you to quit. They have access to counselors, to group therapy, individual therapy. Your doctor is another great resource, because we know with nicotine, like I said, the withdrawal symptoms can occur. So you really sometimes need those medications to help you treat those withdrawal symptoms and those cravings. So your doctor can help you by prescribing medications. There are also behavioral types of therapies that you could do that can really help you get rid of that addiction.
Yeah, while we have you here, I just want to ask, it seems like the Biden administration, the FDA, they're really cracking down on nicotine across the board. They're reducing nicotine in cigarettes. Is that really happening?
Yes, I am so hopeful for this, because this is something that should have been a long time coming. We've known for a long time the harmful effects of nicotine on our health. And I think this, again, is that FDA sending a message saying we're really going to take a public health stance and take this highly addictive substance, reduce the amount of it so that that addiction occurs at a less rapid pace, and you can really interrupt that cycle of addiction that can happen.
Because it's so hard to quit.
It
to
really
wait
is.
until it's an addiction and to find a way to quit.
Because it
so
creates
difficult.
chemical changes in your brain. So you actually have to retrain your brain. There are chemical imbalances that occur once we become addicted. So it's not just a behavioral thing, it's a physiological thing, addiction. And it's not a sign of weakness either. But we can do it with the right resources.
All right, it's an important conversation. Thank
Dr.
you.
Kholi, thank you.